North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. What do? We report the news, honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point out both. We make commentary, which is not news. That's opinion, yours and mine. We compare them. We talk about them. That's called debate. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. Good morning. It's great to have you here. Gary from Fort Polk, Louisiana is here. Poker Monkey is here so far. Poker Monkey wins the Facebook Derby. He's the first guy through on the chat room. By the way, you can find us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch. And we're doing okay. Leaving for the chiropractor soon, followed by playing poker in Dallas. I'll listen on the phone as much as I can. Well, thank you, my friend. That's very nice of you. As we come to this broadcast today, there are disturbing, even maybe heartbreaking questions regarding our president. Wesley Craig Ownby says, good morning. Good morning, Wes. How are you? I hope you're having a great day. Our president is infirm. He has trouble. And it's getting worse. And all of us know it. The Democrat Party has a very difficult decision to make. And what they do next very likely will impact who leads this country beginning in 2024. So what do we do about a president who, according to most Americans, Democrat, Republican, Independent, should not run again? What do we do about this? As many of us have pointed out, there's not a lot of decision-making going on with Joe Biden. Joe Biden, in my opinion, appears to be a mouthpiece for somebody else. In the run-up to the 2020 election, I mentioned that those people who were voting for Joe Biden were very likely not going to have a Biden presidency. They were going to empower people using the Biden presidency. And those people aren't elected. We have a pretty good idea who this cabal is. We have a pretty good idea who the members are. But why is it that they're able to lead this nation under the name of Joe Biden without having to face the electorate? That's a question that a lot of people are beginning to ask, and not just me. I saw this earlier this morning. I was watching Fox and Friends, and James Van Der Beek did this TikTok video. I think you should see it, because he asks a lot of questions that simply must be asked. And it's my hope that you understand what he's saying and consider it. I want to ask you about it. This is James Van Der Beek over the weekend.
So it's early in the morning on Memorial Day. I'm walking my dogs, pulling a weight sled with my kid in it, and cannot get over the fact that the Democratic National Committee is saying there will not be a debate to decide the nominee for president. Are you kidding me? There's no debate. There's no debate over an 80-year-old man who, if he lives, will be the oldest sitting president in the history of the country. And if he doesn't live, has a vice president whose approval rating is worse than his. This guy is obviously declining mental faculties. You're putting him up in front of a podium with flashcards telling him who to call on and what the questions are going to be. You're telling us there's no debate? What about the will of the people? And let's just, not even the will of the people. What about the will of the people who voted for the guy last time? Because of those people, 72% think there ought to be a debate. Of the people who voted for Biden last election, 72% want a debate. So the DNC is openly ignoring, bypassing the will of the people. Why? that this was a democracy of the people, by the people, for the people. If we don't have a debate, this is not a democracy by the people. It's a democracy by them. For who? Big banks, big business, big tech, big pharma, big government, big whatever. I mean, what the hell? How is this a democracy? And how is anybody in the DNC right today going to post about thanking our troops and thanking the families who have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our democracy and our way of freedom? And listen, I am grateful for them, but any member of the DNC who's going to think about posting that today, stop, think, and do your fucking job before you start posting about how grateful you are. There are people out there who are willing to die to preserve democracy, because you are not preserving democracy right now. You're shoehorning your pick and forcing it on the rest of us. And don't tell me that the other candidates aren't serious, because one of them is polling at 7%. The other one is at 19%. That is a quarter of the vote who already thinks there's at the very least some debate about who ought to be president. If there's no debate, there's no democracy. No primary, no legitimate president. So thank you to all the troops. Thank you to the families who have made the ultimate sacrifice to preserve our way of life, to preserve our democracy. Let's all do our part. We need a debate. How do we have a government? How do we have a democracy if we're letting a small little back room of people make all the important decisions for us? That's not a democracy, and it doesn't work, because y'all have been wrong about a lot these last couple of years in that back room. No debate, no democracy. And I could be wrong. That's the thing. I could be wrong about all this. I could be wrong about the guy being fit for the job. I could be wrong about the other people being right, being legitimate, being crazy. You know what would solve that? A debate. Have a debate. Happy Memorial Day.
James Van Der Beek. Those are words not partisan at all. He's speaking to everyone in America. Everyone. He says things that are absolutely essential for us to hear. All of us. There are, granted, unreliable polls out there that talk about how President Biden's over it. You know, he probably should have never been president to begin with. The country's going the wrong direction. There are all kinds of statements being made, but they're polls. And we know for a fact that those polls can be manipulated for political effect, because we've seen it. We've seen it. You know, I was reading an article. Scott Rasmussen, who runs the Rasmussen Report. You know, he's all in for Ron DeSantis. Now, you know, like Ron DeSantis, not like Ron DeSantis, plan to vote for him, don't plan to vote for him, and so on and so on. But Scott Rasmussen was at least a quiet voice of competence during the survey manipulation of the people of the United States in the 2020 election. But how can he do this? How can he run honest polling if he's already made his choice for who the president should be? The answer is you can't. So what do the polls mean? 71% of Americans believe the country's on the wrong track. Is that real? In my gut, yeah, I think that's real. 59% or close to 2/3 of Democrats don't want Biden to run. Is that real? Probably. Because the bias toward whatever the agenda du jour is from the Democrat National Committee, well, that seems to be borne out in the next poll, except for the one from CNN, which, for all intents and purposes, would have slaughtered anybody else's chances to be the president of the United States. All those numbers were savagely against President Biden. But as I said when I was reporting it, is any of that real? When you compound the news effort and leftist politics, you end up with exactly what James Van Der Beek is talking about. You end up with a small group of people making decisions about American policy. Now, some of them, I suspect a few of them, have actually faced the electorate. But I would say the majority of this cabal that's behind Joe Biden have not. And Van Der Beek says, well, that's not a democracy. No, it's not. It's an oligarchy. Or more likely, a junta. A group of people making decisions, absent any kind of nod to the will of the people. Empowered by nothing more than ego that says, we are better than you. We make better decisions than you. Look at what you guys did in 2016 when you elected Donald Trump. Obviously, we must intervene. That's a coup against the United States of America by government officials, in my view. It's not that they're going after a singular president or a singular presidential figure, although they did that with Donald Trump. These people are coming after the country. And they rely on their handmaidens in the mainstream media to ease the path. But yeah, as you've noticed, as they continue to lose the conversation, they become more and more shrill, willing to drive their agenda not through better ideas, but through manufactured hysteria. How is that in any way, shape, or form, regardless of the goal in mind? How is that any way to run a country? Scare the people to death? Leave them breathlessly trying to overcome anxiety every day? Is that the way to run a country? Where does that make sense to anybody? They can't possibly believe that intellectual bankruptcy has any validity in any way, shape, or form. And yet they persist. So what do we have? We have one guy saying, yeah, we've got real problems here. The major political parties, and I'm talking about both of them, are ignoring their voters. They're just plain ignoring their voters. They're banking on the idea that, well, we're the only game in town. And what they have done through over the decades is ensured that they're the only game in town. So what do you think? Is Van Der Beek right? Do we need to get Joe Biden out of there? What are we doing? This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Our telephone number is 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. President Obama is likely a part of the people behind Joe Biden. He has, in his very sophisticated, very erudite way, positioned himself to be critical of President Biden in the way that presidents often are, with small comments said briefly and not really promoted. But that may be a ruse. That may be a ruse. There are a lot of people that believe that President Obama is running the show. What do you think? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. And what about Kamala Harris? What if, God forbid, President Biden, his health takes a turn for the worse? He is incapacitated beyond where he is now. And Kamala Harris becomes the president of the United States. Remember all the work that Nancy Pelosi did with the 25th Amendment to be able to remove a president? Trump, very, very, very analytical, said, that's not about me. That's about Joe Biden, laying the groundwork for the removal of this president. I have to agree. Is that trigger going to be pulled? I believe that the powers that be behind the Democrat establishment believe that Joe Biden was not going to deteriorate as quickly as he has. And I also believed, and also continue to believe, that they felt that Kamala Harris was more talented than she actually was. I remember the debate, the only one that she showed up at, where she looked at Joe Biden, she says, come on, Joe, you can't really be serious. I'm sitting there going, what is that woman doing? She was trying to be cutesy. And she failed miserably. As a matter of fact, it was spooky. I was frightened by the fact that this was somebody so close to real power in the nation. And she absolutely, that was that for me. That was the moment where I said, nope. But there she is, one step away from the presidency, with an ailing president, and without any shred of public mandate. Not even the mainstream media can do anything about Kamala Harris. And so these people, these architects, these political operators who pat themselves on the back and assure everyone that they could get anybody in the world elected to be the president of the United States, because they are so good at what they do, and they're so astute at manipulating the American people. Well, they've done it. And look at where we are. In an effort to defend this president, we've allowed the mainstream media to practice character assassination on everybody else. Anybody who stands up against the Biden administration suddenly finds themselves as the focus of a federal investigation, right down to parents at school board meetings. Victor Davis Hanson says something that repeats something that I said earlier today. We'll get to that in a moment. You're watching and listening to the Wells Report. And as we look at 2024, the picture is changing. We'll continue to follow that in just a moment. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. The Wells Report, hello.
Hello.
Something tells me I was late. Hi, welcome to the Wells Report. Yeah, news, analysis, commentary, and debate. And apparently I can't read my watch. Welcome back. Sorry about that. Hope you enjoyed the music. So we have a caller, as you probably heard. Gary from Fort Polk, Louisiana joins us. Gary, welcome to the show.
Yes, thank you for having me. I just want to start off by saying real fast, I could attest to your golf score from Monday because I was there. It's factual, it's accurate, no BS. He really did come up with that low score. And once again, kudos and thank you for being such a great coach.
Oh, my pleasure. My pleasure. I love the game, and I'm glad you were out there with me. So what do you think? I know your feelings about President Biden. You believe that he is indeed a puppet.
Yes.
But let's work beyond that. Let's work beyond this to the realities of it. These people that are running the Biden presidency were not elected. And yet the president talks about protecting the democracy. What democracy? Do you see any democracy here, or what do you see?
No, and that's spot on. These appointed folks, these folks that are sitting, behind the, in the shadows, behind their keyboards, and this is exactly why they ran this guy. I mean, let's face it. I mean, he's never exactly been the sharpest tool in a shed across the board, and exacerbated by, his age. What we've been seeing when they do let him in front of the camera, he's just reading the scripts. And anybody who doesn't believe that, it's time for a check up from the neck up, my friends, because I mean, this is obvious. It's he's not running anything. He's just, once again, he's just reading the scripts.
James Vanderbeek, in the video that I played earlier today, said that according to his math, a quarter of Democrat voters are voting no on Joe Biden right now. And that, of course, is based on this polling information. And as we've all discovered, polling is nothing more than just another political tool to forward an agenda. But, I mean, I look at this, you know me, I'm a tactical thinker. I'm trying to figure out just exactly how the Democrat Party is going to get themselves out of this mess. And I don't know how they're going to do it.
It's they're in their eyes, the folks that are actually calling the shots, they're not in a mess. This is planned out. This is exactly what's supposed to happen. And what I wanted to say was, a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about President Trump not wanting to debate. He's not going to get a fair shake from the news services. The Republican primary, they need to hammer the point that this guy's not willing, the current president is not willing to come out and debate and everything else. Not attack it. They should still deal with how they're going to handle issues. But that should be brought up that, hey, where's your guy? How come he's not going to come out here and debate and defend his record and everything else?
I just don't know how they do it. I don't know how they do it. I don't know. I mean, Gavin Newsom is being spoken of as, the next big thing for the Democrat Party, but what he's done to California is a disaster.
Well, he's not a Democrat. We have very few real Democrats, but he's a communist. It's that simple. As is most of them have adopted this ideology, like it's going to work or something. It's so we need to get the term correct.
Yeah. All right. Listen, thanks very much, Gary. I appreciate your time. Tell everybody in Louisiana that I said hi. I used to live there.
Yes. It's a steamy day in Fort Polk, I understand. So thank you. Thanks for what you're doing. Keep up the good work. And folks, start calling in, man. Let's hear your voices. Let's get your opinions on the air.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Gary. I appreciate it. This is the Wells Report. I am John David Wells. I mentioned Victor Davis Hanson, who is a very thoughtful guy. He's an historian. He's a guy who has watched this for a very, very long time. And in the Daily Caller has written the following: the left is waging a full-fledged cultural revolution. That is not a term that he uses lightly. A cultural revolution is what destroyed China. The left is waging a full-fledged cultural revolution against traditional America, and the Maoist results are often as absurd as they are terrifying. Special Counsel John Durham issued a final report on wrongdoing within the FBI, the CIA, and the Department of Justice. The summary confirms that our premier investigatory and intelligence agencies interfered with the 2016 and 2020 presidential campaigns. Directors and high-ranking FBI officials lied under oath. They misled Congress. They altered court documents. They deceived federal judges. The FBI hired a foreign national to gather dirt on Donald Trump's 2016 campaign while he was being paid by the rival Hillary Clinton campaign. That linkage is as unmistakable as it is terrifying. The FBI contracted Twitter to suppress the news. It kept Hunter Biden's laptop under wraps. Even his former intelligence officials flat out lied that it was likely Russian disinformation. It was a blatant effort to aid the 2020 Biden campaign. The IRS just conceded whistleblowers were correct, and the agency fired its entire multi-year audit team responsible for investigating Hunter Biden's purported tax irregularities. The agency says it was told to do so by the Department of Justice. What? Headed by Biden's appointee, Merrick Garland, California is facing a crushing $32 billion budget deficit. Now remember, California was in a huge financial mess before COVID. All of this money that was appropriated to Congress naturally went to many liberal states that are equally in trouble financially. And I told you what California was going to do. They were not going to pay their bills with that money. What they ended up doing was essentially kicking the debt wagon down the road, the can down the road. And now they're in a mess. While they're doing that, the chief executive of California, Gavin Newsom, is talking about reparations for black citizens in California to the tune of $800 billion. Where would he get the money? No one has any idea where the money comes from, says Victor Davis Hanson. No one can define who would qualify. No one explains why a state that never allowed slavery 8 generations ago now owes selected Californians billions of dollars that it does not have. One of the reparations board leaders asserts blacks might be willing to accept an installment plan of payments. So what's California going to do? Just put all these people, regardless of how they qualify, on the state payroll? Again, how are they going to pay for it? Victor Davis Hanson continues, the NAACP just issued a travel alert advising blacks not to visit Florida. The announcement was timed to draw negative attention to conservative Florida Governor Ron DeSantis and his announcement for a presidential bid. Chicago, Baltimore, Milwaukee, Pittsburgh, Los Angeles, Indianapolis, all outside Florida, have the highest black murder rates in the nation. Florida, by contrast, with a black population of 3.3 million, has the second largest number of black businesses in the nation. The chairman of the NAACP's board of directors is himself a Florida resident. He lives in Tampa. Black Lives Matter just announced it lost millions of dollars in investments and ran up huge deficits. They say the culprit was former corrupt leadership. Corrupt leadership? Really? What leadership are they talking about? It's extravagant spending, plush homes, family hangers-on have nearly bankrupted the advocacy group. It can't account for the millions of dollars in corporate guilt and protection money it leveraged following the George Floyd riots in 2020. In New York, a threatening subway career criminal with 42 prior arrests was subdued by a bystander, died during the confrontation. The criminal is now deified. The would-be Samaritan is charged with felony manslaughter. The deceased's uncle is vocal about his late nephew's confrontation, but he himself was arrested with stolen property and armed with a knife. He was mysteriously still roaming the streets, despite 70 prior arrests and current active arrest warrants. What's that all about? In almost every American city and town, biological males, with enormous advantages in size and musculoskeletal mass, routinely win women's sporting events. They are systematically destroying decades of progress that sought to ensure parity between men's and women's sports. Corporate America has joined the cultural revolution hysteria. Companies are apparently now hell-bent on destroying their brands, profits, and net worth. Anheuser-Busch, what a mistake. Who did they think their consumers were in the first place? Under pressure from LGBTQIA+, which is the latest tortured acronym, the Los Angeles Dodgers re-invited the Sisters of Perpetual Indulgence to celebrate Pride Night at Dodger Stadium. In fact, one of the Dodger pitchers, who's Catholic, is rightly very, very annoyed about the persecution of Catholicism in his ball club. Catholics and Christians object to the invitation because the group's notoriety hinges on its sexualized and often pornographic mockery of Catholic ritual, the Holy Trinity, and the Christian faith. The supposedly courageous group would never dare extend its street theater blasphemy to other religious groups, such as Muslims or Hindus, and you know why. We've seen it all around the world. But Catholics, not so much. The Dodgers don't care that Greater Los Angeles may be home to 6 million Mexican-American citizens. And most of those are Catholic, and most of those are Dodger fans. Anheuser-Busch nearly destroyed its best-selling Bud Light brand by hiring transgender performance art activist Dylan Mulvaney to hawk the brand, and his own transitioning into America's working class. You just don't see that. That's not what the American working class identifies with. The Disney Corporation for decades enjoyed multi-billion-dollar concessions and veritable 40-square-mile of private fiefdom gifted from the taxpayers of Florida. No matter, Disney has rebranded its films, its amusement parks, television offerings to reflect radical transgender, gay, and race advocacy. The results so far are billion-dollar losses in Disney stock, subscribers, and viewers. A woke CNN all but destroyed its once global audience. It now has fewer viewers than certain popular podcasts. In fact, this podcast actually defeated MSNBC on several different occasions. Haven't been able to break through. I haven't actually checked out. I haven't exactly checked out the numbers to see whether or not I'm successful regarding CNN. I doubt it. But CNN has, again, just like the Democrat National Committee, put themselves in an intractable position that will take decades to fix. All these implosions are not shocking but surreal. Our government, corporations, popular cultures colluding in mass suicide to the delight of enemies like communist China? ? Victor Davis Hanson and his thoughts today. You know, the Democrat Party used to be an American political party. Are they still? Are Democrats still Americans? At least the elite leadership. Let me rephrase the question. Is the elite Democrat leadership of the Democrat Party, are they still American? Yes or no, and tell me why. A17379-2172, A17379-2172. This is the Wells Report. We'll be back with more coming up in just a moment. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. Here on time this time. Hi. This is the Wells Report, news, analysis, commentary, and debate. That's what we do. We're talking a little bit about the quandary that we find ourselves in with a president who is infirm enough to not be able to walk well. He's having trouble lifting his feet, as one of our viewers is talking about. She's a registered nurse. She knows what she's looking at. This gentleman is the president of the United States, is dealing with frank, cerebral difficulty. His brain is deteriorating. And it's out in front of everybody in the world every day. Even when he doesn't actually appear on television, he's still there. And there is a time when you have to say, this man is not capable of the job he currently holds. That's just the way it is. And with the DNC saying, nah, we're not going to do any debates. What is that? It's so bad that an actor from Hollywood is pointing out the fact that it's not a democracy. Victor Davis Hanson, as we just discovered, believes that this is the American version of the Cultural Revolution, not led by a charismatic strong man with the ability to make people who disagree with him simply disappear, but rather a Kafkaesque, an absurdist, through the looking glass craziness that is sustained by people who know better. All played out before us every single day. For the sake of what? For the sake of what? Nothing they do is going to succeed. All it's doing is creating an angrier America. And what they try to do with angry Americans is not provide them with redress of their grievances. They throw them into jail. They throw them into jail. And so all I can do is say, hey, these are the facts that I see. This is the news that I read. This is what I do. And I'm just hoping that there's somebody out there that is at least considering it. Unlike the mainstream media, for me, lying about the news is out of the question. But it is so arcane at this moment. It's very difficult to sort the wheat from the chaff in that gigantic pile of steaming what that the news media foists on us every day. We have got to do better. We must. We simply must remove these people from power in these United States. It's not going to be easy. Look at how difficult it's been for anybody who has tried. And that's what's truly disturbing to me. There are people celebrating the fact that people who showed up at the Capitol building have been thrown in jail for years. They are political prisoners. They are political prisoners. The hypocrisy of chasing down those people at the Capitol that day is made plain by the people they did not chase down during the 2020 BLM riots, which was true destructive murder, robbery, all manner of criminal activity. All of this is pointing to an America that none of us recognize. And I do try to differentiate between the Democrats, people like, I never thought I'd say this, RFK, and the people like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris and the people running mainstream media. There are differences of Democrats, but the real Democrats, the ones that are still American, and there are a lot of them, you better take back your brand. You better take back your brand. I'm not somebody that spends an awful lot of time talking about who the Democrats should choose. Not my livestock, not my farm. But I will tell you this. The people in the Democrat Party. I'm not talking about the communists or the activists or the radicals. I'm talking about the people, the American people in the Democrat Party. You better take your party back. Now, make no mistake, the Republican Party is equally hindered by ulterior people who have learned the rather difficult and dishonest art of standing in the background and saying nothing. And then saying, we didn't say anything. We didn't agree with the Democrat Party. Oh, yeah? You just gave them $2.5 trillion more dollars. Yeah. You wanted $4.5 trillion of cuts, and you settled for half that. In other words, the Democrat Party still got what they wanted. It's like Republicans can't haggle. They don't understand the psychology of it. Well, the Democrats do. Or the Democrat Party does. And like I said, I'm differentiating between the Democrats and the Democrat Party. But those Democrats better get to work. They better get to work. Because without that, I doubt very sincerely this country is going to last much longer. Certainly not in the form that we see it now. This has been the Wells Report for the first hour. Hour number 2 is right around the corner. Stay where you are. We'll be back with that in just a couple of moments. Stay put. Thanks for listening to the Wells Report, more of which continues in 6 minutes. You found the Wells Report, more of which continues in 5 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. North to south, coast to coast, around the world. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. We report the news honestly and fairly. We analyze the news for fact and bias. We point those things out. We make commentary which is just opinion, yours and mine, and so we debate. News analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. You can take part in that debate by going to the chat room. By all means, please do so. There have been a lot of people that have weighed in on all of this. I'm trying to figure out what it is about the Democrat Party that is going to save that institution. It's going to take Democrats realizing that they've been sold a bill of progressive slash socialist slash communist goods. The people that have been so militarized, militant in their belief that somehow the United States of America is a terrible country and must be changed forthwith into what? A more terrible country? I'm a big one for reducing things to simplicity. And the simplicity of this for me is take a look at this nation beginning in 2008 until now. Is this a better country? Is this a better country than it was before? I just want to know. 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Poker says, I can't believe that the Chinese haven't attacked Taiwan yet. I don't know why either. Actually, I do know why. Because there's a capability that Taiwan possesses that has been kept carefully under wraps. And the Chinese communists know it. An invasion of Taiwan would very likely cost them Beijing, the entire city. And so they don't. That's the only thing that makes sense. That is the only thing that makes sense. But the rest of this is, once again, we find ourselves in a position where the United States of America is a different country. Many people voted for President Obama, and he said that he wanted to fundamentally change America. Has he been successful? I would say so. And I don't like what I see. I'm trying to find what the redeeming attributes are of this agenda. Do you know what they are? Isaac Tate. Isaac Tate's a Democrat, longtime friend of the Wells Report. Tell me what's better about the nation than, say, for example, I don't know, during the Bush administration. What is good about the agenda that we currently see painted before us by a corrupt mainstream media? What's actually better? Anything? Isaac Tate says that Obama hasn't been the president in 7 years. Do you honestly believe that? Do you believe that Barack Obama hasn't been the president for the last 2.5 years? I'm really trying to figure that out. And I'm really trying to figure out whether or not this is a better country. Bush's policies led to a recession. What about the recession we're in? Calculated. Not just calculated, but enacted. And we're right in the middle of it. What about it? Obama got us out of the Great Recession. What did he give us? What did he give us? And by the way, did President Obama get us out of the Great Recession, or the greatest banking in the history of the human endeavor that was given to us by the Fed? That really didn't have anything to do with presidential policy. That had to do with monetary policy. And as we've seen with a country whose government is now $31.7 trillion in debt and will very likely break 32 before you can say, how are we going to pay this? And more, how can you say that we are anything but in a situation where we are absolutely in a worse place than we've ever been? We are not in a recession, says Isaac. That's what everybody else says. Why don't you say that? I'm paying more for everything. In fact, on a personal note, I'm sitting in my nice home in the suburbs of Fort Worth, Texas, and I've lived here for quite some time. This is a beautiful house, and we really, really enjoy it, but as all things, it's beginning to show some wear. In the case that I'm in right this very moment, the wear and tear on the house has centered itself on the air conditioning of the upstairs. So I was trying to figure out just exactly how I could repair this unit, and I was told yesterday by a professional involved in that particular industry that the coolant used to provide cool air to this system and this house was now $300 a pound because it is essentially illegal now. It's essentially illegal. Instead of being able to, say, for example, fix my air conditioning, they are asking me for tens of thousands of dollars to replace it with a system that was rendered obsolete, not because it didn't work well, not because there was better technology, but because of political policy. One thing is for certain, the Wells family is solidly in the middle class. We are solidly in the middle class. How is that not a tax on the middle class? Some government bureaucrat says that my air conditioning is using a chemical that, for whatever reason, is going to destroy the climate. All the climate predictions have been wrong, and yet we continue to pursue them. There's another climate prediction by John Kerry, who's out there saying, we've got to stop barbecuing because it's destroying the earth. Oh, really? Yeah, okay. We'll get to that coming up in a little bit. So why in heaven's name am I having to go through all of these things based on some cockamamie notion that the entire earth will be destroyed in the next decade if we barbecue a hamburger on 4th of July? Why is that? How is this the job of government as described by the Constitution of the United States? And all these people have been wrong. All the entire way. The entire way. So anyway, I look at this country and I have a simple question. Is this better? Is this a better country in the last, 15 years? Is this a better country than we had? Was the promise by President Obama to fundamentally change America good or bad for the country? Because arguably, the country is fundamentally changed. Is this a better country or a worse one? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. That's what I want to hear. I want to understand whether or not you believe this is a better country. In simple terms. In simple terms. So let's move back to some more news coverage. The debt ceiling garbage is still garbage. USA Today reports that Republican Kevin McCarthy's razor-thin speakership faces its biggest test since he grabbed the gavel in January as a debt deal with President Joe Biden comes up for a vote today. McCarthy and the president came to an agreement during an hour-and-a-half phone call just days before the U.S. ran out of money to pay its bills. It didn't run out of money to pay its bills. And if it doesn't pay its bills, it's because the Treasury Secretary is incompetent. The plan raises how much the government can borrow until 2025, which was President Biden's top priority. In other words, once again, we found ourselves succumbing to the ignorant rhetoric that somehow the United States government was going to default based on incompetence, which is possible, by the way. The Wells Report, thanks very much for joining us. Welcome to the broadcast.
Hello, sir. How are you?
I am fine. I'm fine. Who's this?
This is John Rosato.
Hi, Johnny. What's going on?
So, to answer your question, or I guess to weigh in on your question about are we better now than we were before, and this is going to be all personal opinion here. I think that as a nation, the private sector has brought us, quite far in many respects. So I think that it's a testament to our system of free market, free private sector that has created a better and more accessible market. But it seems like and I'm going to make the same distinction that you have been, the liberal Democrat / socialists that are in our government are actively trying to push that system, into something completely different. And we're seeing in those cities and states that they're pushing these things, these policies, the downturn. And it baffles me that they're not seeing the damage that they're doing to this nation. It's insane that that there are so many people in the U.S. that are willing just to stand by idly, even if they don't agree on the left, the registered Democrats, that even if they don't agree with the socialist agenda, that they're just so willing to stand by due to party politics and allow it to happen. And I think you're completely correct that they need to step up. They need to step up because Democrats and conservatives have more in common than we have in differences. And I'm talking about the moderates, the people. We need to unite and stop playing this party politics and get these garbage politicians out of office.
I agree. And we've got a chance to do it in 2024. Who will be waiting for us then? We'll get to that coming up a little bit later on this hour. You're watching and listening to the Wells Report. I want to thank you very much for doing both. We'll be back with more coming up in just a couple of moments for this 31st day of May, the real last day of May, even though I somehow believe that there are only 30 days in May. Don't ask me why. It's letters and numbers, and that's what a calendar is, and I just have a terrible time. This is the Wells Report. Back in a sec. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Speaking of how the left continually seeks to scare the living snot out of us, John Kerry, right on cue, comes up with his latest dire climatic predictions.
An existential issue. It is an issue where people today are dying. 15 million a year die because of lack of air quality. 10 million people are dying every year around the world because of extreme heat. It's getting hotter. There are going to be more intensive weather events, and it will cost us an awful lot more money. So as that happens, as people see their farms, the crops ripped away or their homes destroyed, you watch the pressure grow. And I believe we're in a transformational moment. I think this will be one of, if not but it'll be one of the top 3 issues in the 24 presidential election. No question in my mind.
Well, all I can tell you is that I disagree vehemently. Welcome to the Wells Report. Good to have you here. Who's this?
It's me, Kelly.
Hi, Kelly. What's going on in Oklahoma today?
Extreme heat. We're all dying. The sky is falling. The sky is falling.
It's almost like summer has showed up.
Yeah, I wonder if he flew on his private jet to that interview.
Well, a guy like him has to do that. I mean, he's already said that. Yeah.
Oh, well, that's okay if he has to do it.
Yeah, a guy
now,
like
I am a Democrat, and I don't agree with half the crap that comes out of their mouths anymore. But I just wanted to say the guy was right. We've got to do something. I mean, it's amazing if people will get together, what you can do to get things changed. For example, the boycott on Budweiser cost them billions of dollars. So if people would start doing something and boycotting some of this stuff, I think we would be able to make a positive change.
I have to agree. And it's not just Budweiser. It's not just Anheuser-Busch. But it's also Target stores. It's all of these giant corporations that have traded their profit margin for the sake of their politics, and CNN led the way on that. That was the Jeff Zucker era of CNN, and I don't even know that that network is going to survive.
Well, I go to all of my Sooner, my Boomer Sooners. I'm a huge OU fan. I go to a lot of the events, and now, of course, it's getting warmer here in Oklahoma. It's summertime. It's called summertime. There's all these long lines at the beer. There's a long line for Coors. There's a long line for Miller, but there's no line in the Budweiser anymore. I mean, it's just completely empty, which is, I think, hilarious. And I do want to say one other thing. You were talking about your air conditioning.
Yes.
You better get that fixed before I come and visit.
We're going to do our absolute dead level
I'm
best.
sleeping on the couch.
Yeah, that's absolutely. We'll do our absolute
And
dead level
we'll
best.
sleep on the couch.
Funny. Thanks
All
very
right,
much,
take care,
Kelly.
bud.
Yeah, take care. Thanks for the call. Telephone number 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Let's see. Let me try this one more time. What I'm doing is I'm responding to the chat room, which you can take part in, rather. Go to Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch, and join us there. As the left, and what I want to do, I didn't have a chance to ask Kelly this. What I'm interested in is, what comes with voting for Democrat leadership in the nation are all these people that have a completely different idea of what life is and what it means. These are the people that can't define what a woman is. And they're in high posts in this nation. They can't define what a woman is? Really? There's a Supreme Court justice who's supposed to weigh in and actually make decisions about the Constitution of the United States and doesn't know what a woman is. This is dangerously out of control, and it comes when you vote for Democrat leadership. Oh, make no mistake. Crazy things happen when you vote for Republican leadership, too, but at the end of the day, which is worse? You tell me. This is the Wells Report. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will be back in 4 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 3 minutes. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. News, analysis, commentary, and debate. This is the Wells Report. John David Wells reporting. Thank you very much for being here today. Let's see. Mike Renouille, 14th Amendment. Nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, or deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Mike Renouille. Do we have equal protection under the law? Yes or no? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. The left is losing the debate. The circumstances are as follows. The Alabama legislature just passed and then the governor signed a bill that bans transgender female athletes from competing in women's sports. Alabama Governor Kay Ivey signed the legislation yesterday that prohibits transgender women from participating on female sports teams in college. The state had previously banned transgender athletes from participating in female youth sports from grades K through 12. Under the law, students are prohibited from playing under a different gender identity even after undergoing hormone treatment. Look, if you're a biological male, you're not going to be competing in women and girls sports in Alabama. It's about fairness, plain and simple, said Governor Ivey. The movement for college regulations began in April when the legislation advanced in the middle of the month. The K-12 ban was put in place in 2021. Forcing women to compete against biological men would reverse decades of progress that women have made for equal opportunity in athletics. This, according to Republican Representative Susan DuBose, the bill's sponsor. She's told the committee last month. She went on to say that no amount of hormone therapy can undo the advantages of being born male from a physical standpoint. The bill says biological girls would not be able to participate in boys and men's sports. The ban has drawn criticism from members and supporters of the LGBTQIA+ community. Kamarian D. Anderson Harvey, the Alabama State Director of Human Rights, the Human Rights Campaign, an advocacy group for LGBTQIA+ people, said the legislation is part of a systemic attack against the LGBTQ community in Alabama and elsewhere. Quote, in just 2 years, she and extremist lawmakers in Alabama have passed 4 anti-LGBTQ+ bills. From dictating what bathrooms we can use to blatantly ignoring the actual problems in women's sports, These politicians are making Alabama an increasingly hostile place for transgender people and the LGBTQ plus community as a whole. 20 other states have restrictions on transgender girls and women participating in female sports. And so the left is indeed losing the debate. And they should have been able to see it coming. There are very few things that Americans will tolerate, one of the least of which is attacks on children. And regardless of your politics, human biology is hundreds and hundreds of thousands of years old. And while you can physically alter a human being to resemble a female, you're not female. Never will be. In fact, what you will be is sterile. And you will just be a human being walking around on the planet with very little to contribute from the furtherance of the human condition. Is that what you want for your children? This is absurd. This is absolutely absurd. And you're saying, my gosh, John, you're sounding awfully partisan today. Well, let's take a look at the other side of the question. All these bills being passed by Republican legislatures. All right, so they solve, in the minds of the people who believe in them, they solve an exigent problem that has to be taken care of immediately if you want to have girls' sports. Well, where are the Republicans with the bill that establishes transgender athletics in the United States? This is simple. This is very, very simple. Just create sports leagues for transgender females. Go right ahead. Do it immediately, in fact. Go ahead and put the money into it. Get it going. But you see, there's a problem, isn't there? There aren't enough athletes. There aren't enough athletes to create a transgender sports league of any kind anywhere. Okay? We'll do it anyway. How could the LGBTQ plus community argue with that? I mean, they'll find a way, but how will they argue? The simple case of the matter is that Alabama is going to get some of the greatest female athletes in the world coming to Alabama to compete because it's a place where they can. And that will be the impetus to change all this. We have so empowered these micro communities of people that still Americans, still protected. You see, equal protection under the law applies to everyone because of the word equal. But granting extra privileges is not equal. So what's the actual point here? Is the actual point just to pick a fight? Well, congratulations. You've done it. And is America a better place because of this fight? Yes or no, and why? Let's get back to basics. I've asked this a couple of times on this broadcast. Is this a better country than it was 15 years ago? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Is this a better country? In my humble opinion, no. No. It's not a better country. It's more divisive. The power of this nation, once invested in we the people, now invested in the shrillest, most angry, most divisive voices in this nation. Sustained by people who should know better, the mainstream media. This is not the nation that the forebears of this country bargained for. The fundamental change that President Obama promised, so far, at least in my view, has been a failure. What has gone right? What has gone right here? How do these people explain away that over 70% of us believe the country's is going the wrong direction? Now, once again, they can sit there and say, well, the polling is suspect, because the polling, by the way, is suspect. But all that being said, okay, why is it, if it's suspect, why is it that it's quoted constantly when it services the left and minimized when it services the political opposition to the left? These are absurdities that cannot be explained logically. They can only be explained by bullying. Another cause celeb for the left that they only use as a political lever. This is a small number of people. As I said, the Democrat Party needs to wake up and reclaim itself before it's too late. There are people that are openly hostile to the United States of America. Why are they serving in Congress? They swore an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States. Does the squad do that? Or do they work at every possible turn to denigrate, circumvent, flank, render inert, try to provide obsolescence in place of the Constitution, and then create some new politician's paradise? Is that what's happening? Is that what you see? Yes or no? 817-379-2172. 817-379-2172. Our circumstances as follows. We get the government we deserve. Do we deserve this? Is this what we should pursue? Is it possible to turn the corner away from it? I was talking about the fact that Democrats have to reclaim their party. They've got somebody who's trying to do it. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is trying to do it. Will the Democrat Party listen? It's not the party per se. It's the Democrat Party leadership. They're at the forefront of all of this, every bit of it. And again, that's not partisanship. That's the news. You read about it every single day. And I say things like, okay, let's do this. Tell me what's gone right. Tell me what's better. Our homeless encampments in our big cities, is that better for the big cities or worse? A wide open border with people flooding in as fast as they can possibly come, is that making the country better or worse? The political dishonesty of that immigration issue, does that make you more or less confident in the political process? We're so busy arguing the minutia, we're not arguing the actual problem. The actual problem is encompassed in this simple question. Do we live in a better America than we did 15 years ago? And I don't believe we do. I don't believe we do. And it's reached into the very basis of American society. Friends, no longer friends. Families, split, one side or another. These things are not better. This is not a better America. And I find it absolutely fascinating that the leftist powers that be try to sneer their way out of the reality presented by the phrase, "Make America Great Again." They use the acronym because they can't use the actual phrase. I mean, think about it for just a couple of seconds. The Supreme Court of the United States reins in the power of an agency that does not have the actual power that its regulations suggest it does. Oh, make no mistake, they can mess up your life. They can tell you what you can do on your property and what you can't do on your property. Is that America, by the way? But the Supreme Court says, no, you can't really do that, and so on and so forth. And what do the powers that be in the left say about the Supreme Court? Well, it's a MAGA court. Well, let's go ahead and use the entire phrase, shall we? Is reining in the unfettered power of an agency without the actual sanction of the Congress of the United States with their regulations? Does that make the Supreme Court a Make America Great Again Supreme Court? They can't say that. So they sneer when they say MAGA Republicans. The phrase is Make America Great Again. Why are these people so against that? Why? People say America's was never great. Okay. Then let's just turn it to MAG. Make America Great. Let's all work on that. No, because that doesn't serve the political imperative. Does it? You can see the changes in society as people see that this is not the America that we bargained for. You can see it. Kelly Lyons from Oklahoma points out nobody's buying Budweiser beer. Nobody is. Nobody is. Nobody watched CNN. CNN's in a terrible spot. They could stick with what they had and maintain this virulent anti-American audience, or they can try to get back to the facts, which they are trying to do. And after completely losing the audience that does not agree politically with the left, they've now lost the audience that want the affirmation that CNN used to provide for what are cockamamie policies that damage the nation. This is the Wells Report. No one's watching Fox either. Yeah, well, who's in front? This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. Someone else has thrown himself into the chase for the Republican nomination for president. We'll be talking about him coming up in just a couple of moments. Our broadcast continues as we give you the news on the Wells Report. This is the Wells Report, which will return in 2 minutes. You're listening to the Wells Report, which will return in 1 minute. The Wells Report returns in 30 seconds. This is the Wells Report. My name is John David Wells. Telephone number 817-379-2172. Chris Christie, the former New Jersey governor, who branded himself as the only Republican willing and able to take down former President Donald Trump, will enter the 2024 presidential race next week. He's been expected to join the race and will formally make the announcement 6:30 p.m. next Tuesday during a town hall at St. Anselm College in New Hampshire. This has been reported by Axios. Christie's campaign will be spearheaded by longtime advisors Mike Duhame and Maria Comella. According to the New York Times, Duhame served as Christie's top political strategist in 2016. Comella was the chief of staff to former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo. The Tell It Like It Is super PAC has been set up in the former governor's support. GOP operative Brian Jones, as well as the Republican National Committee member Bill Palatucci and Russ Schreifer, all longtime advisors, will lead the operation. Good. That's a good thing. More voices are good. Competition is the crucible of excellence. I don't know what Chris Christie is hoping to accomplish. Once again, it seems like the Republican Party is unwilling to recognize that whether they like it or not, President Trump holds sway over conservative voters in the United States. Are they just going to walk away from that? We'll see. A high school student is calling out the National Speed and Debate Association for censorship after she said a judge at a recent tournament warned her not to bring up former President Trump because it would be inappropriate. The allegations come after James Fishback, the founder of Incubate Debate, told Fox News Digital in an interview the NDSA, the largest group in the country, the largest debate group in the country, has been overtaken by woke ideology. Quote, in March, at an NSDA tournament before the round even started, we were debating President Biden's former foreign affairs track record. My judge warned me not to bring up President Trump as she deemed it inappropriate. If a student like me who was going into debate to have free and open conversations is being censored in this way, that is no longer debate. The NSDA must be recognized as an organization not following students like myself or not allowing students like myself to express openly. Fishback drew attention when he shared an essay about a high school debate on Twitter saying the practice changed his life but has been hijacked by left-wing politics. It's no longer a competition of ideas but an echo chamber that silences and punishes students. The NSDA for itself said in a statement last Friday, the 47,000 Judge Paradigms House on tabroom.com represents the opinions and viewpoints of the individual paradigm authors. Judging Paradigms allows students to adapt to a wide diversity of ideological views from thousands of volunteer judges across the world. However, on each and every ballot, we ask all judges to reflect and remove bias and unfair feedback. In 2019, just to give you some historic context, the national debate champion, Lila Lavender, she described herself as a Marxist-Leninist Maoist who cannot check the revolutionary proletarian science at the door when judging students. She was the national debate champion. She is a Marxist-Leninist Maoist. Now, don't get me wrong. I suppose if you want to talk about the wonders of Marxist, Leninist, Maoist policy, you certainly can. But you have to also, when you start adding those names together, add up that there are 250 million human beings missing because of those three men. 250 million. And that's just an estimate. Nobody actually knows how many people socialism has killed. 250 million people? Yeah, socialism is, you can certainly talk about it if you want to. But I'm still waiting to see it work. It doesn't at all. Lavender listed arguments that she will never accept from students: fascism good, capitalism good, imperialist war good, neoliberalism good, defenses of U.S. or otherwise bourgeois nation, Zionism or normalizing Israel, colonialism good, U.S. white fascist policing good. Another debate judge, Subham Gupta, is even more direct. If you're discussing immigrants in a round and describe a person as illegal, I will immediately stop the round, give you the loss with low speaks, which means low speaker points, give you a stern lecture, and then talk to your coach. Well, if your kid is taking part in high school debate, time to get them out of there. You know, maybe skateboarding. My personal favorite is baseball. You know, you got to find a coach that'll teach them how to play, but I'm one of them. So if you need me to teach your kid how to play, even though they haven't played very well or very long, just give me a call. I'll be more than happy to help. Absolutely. This is what we find ourselves dealing with. And I'll ask again, is this better or worse? Is it better or worse? Do we have a better country or a worse country in the last 15 years? Is America stronger or weaker? Well, it depends on what league you're talking about. If you're talking about the League of Communist Nations, we're stronger. That's just an opinion. What do you believe? Thanks very much for watching this broadcast today. I sincerely appreciate it. I hope you tell your friends about it. Please do. I think we're doing good work here. I'd like to keep doing it. The executive producer of the Wells Report is Dirk Steele. My name is John David Wells. God bless you and yours. Have a great day. Alrighty, my friends, take good care of yourselves, and I will talk to you again tomorrow. Another edition of the Wells Report right here on most of this same weird platforming thing, I guess.